In 2007, a country held an election that did not count. 4 parties invented for the occasion, color-coded. One stood for tradition, one for the environment, one for industry, one for clean government. None of them existed. Nobody was running for anything.
Okay, so it was a joke.
It was practice. The country was Bhutan, and it was rehearsing democracy because almost nobody there had ever voted for anything.
Then somebody was forcing them.
Nobody was. I am the one in the cap. I count. The things governments would rather you did not count. Today, we are counting who actually asked for this. In 2001, the King of Bhutan announced that the monarchy would step aside and hand the country a parliament. There was no uprising, no coup, no foreign pressure, no debt crisis. The instruction to become a democracy came down from the throne.
Sure, and everyone was thrilled.
Many of them begged him not to. Bhutanese voters told reporters they trusted the king more than the politicians who would replace him. They looked at the countries next door and saw what elections did there. The press had a name for them: reluctant Democrats. So the government ran the fake election first. Twice, voters practiced registering, they practiced holding the card, they practiced pressing the button on the machine. Turnout at the practice was poor.
Because it wasn't real. Give them a real one. They'll show up.
They did. On the 24th of March, 2008, about 80% of Bhutan voted. One party took 45 of the 47 seats. In July, the constitution was signed. 101 years of absolute monarchy ended on paper, handed over by the man who held it.
So it's a happy ending.
Hold that thought. A monarchy is a bet on one person's character. Bhutan had made that bet 5 times and won it 5 times. That is not a system working. That is a run of luck. And every run ends. A king who hands power over picks the moment, the rules, and the room. A king who waits until he is pushed gets none of the 3.
So he was being smart, not kind.
Those are not opposites. But there's a part of this story that does not appear in the coverage of the fairy tale, and you should have it before you decide which one he was being. In 1990, in the south of the country, people marched. They were Lhotshampa, ethnic Nepalis, about 1/6 of Bhutan's population. What they were demanding in 1990 was democracy and minority rights. Bhutan expelled them. More than 100,000 people ended up in refugee camps across the border in Nepal, around 40% of the Lhotshampa population of the country. They sat in those camps for the better part of 2 decades until the United States, Canada, and Australia began resettling them under a United Nations program, which has started in 2007, the year before the first election.
That can't be the same country.
It is the same country, the same decade, and the same question. The people who demanded democracy from below were removed. The democracy that arrived came from above, 18 years later, on the schedule of the man who was giving it. Both of those things are true, and the second one is the one that got the headlines. 2 months after Bhutan voted, the question got settled again next door, the other way around. In May 2008, a special assembly in Nepal voted 560 to 4 to abolish the monarchy. Not handed over, taken.
Good. That's how it's supposed to work.
Maybe. 18 years later, a serious part of Nepal wants the monarchy back and says so in the street. Bhutan, where nobody took anything, kept the arrangement it was given. I am not telling you which of those is better. I am telling you the 2 of them happened in the same mountains, in the same year, and came out in opposite directions. Bhutan did pass the only test that matters. In 2013, the second election, the party that had won everything lost, 32 seats to 15. The government changed hands and nothing happened. No army in the street, no emergency. The losers left the building. A democracy is not proved by its first election. It is proved by the first time the people in power lose one and go home anyway. One thing before the twist. If you have got this far, you already like this kind of counting, subscribe, and the next room finds you on its own. Look at where that monarchy came from. The 17th of December 1907, an assembly of monks, officials, and the heads of the leading families met in a fortress at Punakha, and they elected a king unanimously, not conquered, not inherited, chosen. Bhutan voted itself into an absolute monarchy and 101 years later, the monarchy had to coach the country back out of it. That is the part worth keeping. We are taught that people always want more say, and the power has to be taken from the people holding it. Bhutan is one of the places where the opposite is on the record in both directions. They chose the king. They had to be talked into replacing him.
That's one small country.
In 2003, a European country held a referendum on how much power one man should have. 64% voted to give him more. Different continent, same direction. So the next time somebody tells you a system is democratic because there was a vote, ask the harder question. Not whether people voted, ask who was allowed to put the question on the paper. That is the third room. There are 4 more already counted. Subscribe and you get the next one. And if the counting was worth your time, the like button is the one vote here that weighs exactly the same for everybody.